Hello and welcome to the Grove Church Podcast. I'm Charlie Lofton, the lead pastor there, and we are so glad that you're joining us. Whether you are a member and you're just catching up on a sermon that you missed, or you're someone who's brand new, we are really glad that you are joining us. And if you are new in some way, and I know that a lot of people will do that, will listen to sermons first before they visit, I want you to know that we would love to meet you at any point. You can join us live in our services on Sunday, 9 and 10:30, or our streaming service at 10:30. Either way, we would love to be able to get to know you. And regardless of why you are here listening to this sermon today, thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Well, hey, good morning. I want to welcome you as well. My name is Mark, executive pastor here, and I was just thinking this morning, in particular, just a minute ago, it's a privilege to be in this place this morning together, huh? I mean, these things that we've been talking about. If you've been here the last few weeks, and just thinking more deeply about as we build up to celebrate Easter, just how powerful it is, and how powerful it is to talk about these things and think about their implications in this place together. It's just special. I don't think we take it for granted a lot of times, and it is. It's really cool, and I'm thankful that I get to do it with you guys. And so we're going to talk about it a little bit more deeply this morning, and in particular, if you've been tracking with us, we've been walking through Hebrews. And looking at, there's this reoccurring theme of hope that we see in Hebrews, that we have a better hope in what Jesus has done, and his life, his death, his resurrection, and what that means for us. It's this better hope. And most of what we've been talking about, and it feels like a lot of Hebrews, it's pretty up here. There's a lot of just a really core important truths. And I would assume that everybody's like this to a certain degree. Maybe I'm like this to a fault, but a truth is a truth, and that's great. Or something that I know, that's great. But if I can apply it, if I see the application, if I can see the difference that it makes, if you try to tell me how to get to your house right now, and you download all that knowledge, I'm going to be like, oh, that's great. And, but I don't have a clue. I won't have a clue tomorrow. But if I knew I was going there this afternoon and you gave that to me, or better yet, if I were to follow you there, then it would mean something to me. And I would take it to heart, and I would remember it. And it's crazy how those things will stick, and they will affect the things that I do. One of my biggest examples of this is language learning. I grew up in a community where there were a lot of Spanish speakers, and it would have been somewhat beneficial to know Spanish. I still today, I wish I had studied harder and tried harder, because maybe I could order some more authentic Mexican food. I'd have more skills. When we take vacations, when Terry and I go down there for little trips to Mexico, maybe I could communicate better. But practically, we expected in the community that I grew up in, as the majority, that the minority Spanish speakers would just, that they would figure out how to speak English and they would communicate with us. So there was no real need for me to know the language, but I had 6 semesters plus of it in school, because you had to have a language anyway, and I can say hola, in a very hick accent. That's the best I got, and it just never stuck, because I didn't have any application point. Now fast forward, my family and I moved to India. And we found ourselves very much the minority in a village area where to eat, you needed to be able to speak Hindi. And the organization that I was with, maybe knowing me or just knowing how people are, they purposely did that, kind of cut us off from English speakers so that we were forced to do that. If I was gonna eat, if I was gonna feed my family, if we were gonna get things and outfit our little small apartment, we were gonna have to figure out how to communicate. The person that was helping us, we were even in a home, a second floor of a home where the family that was below us, they spoke English, but even they were committed to getting us to speak Hindi. So they were like, no, we're only going to speak Hindi. So I was just stuck. And guess what happened? I picked it up. You could pick it up too if we threw you out. I mean, it just starts to happen. And And I actually made a trip to India just here a few weeks back. If you don't know, I've been connected there for 25 years. We've got a work there that's been going on for a long time, business with a bigger kingdom purpose. And so I made this trip a few weeks ago, and it had been 3 years since I had been on the ground. And I really was stressing about this language deal because, it's been 3 years. And, every once in a while I'll play around and try to talk it, or maybe I'll catch a little bit of a Bollywood film. If you've never watched Bollywood, you totally should. You got to learn how to dance a little bit. But I was really stressing about my ability to recall it all. And sure enough, I step off the plane. First person I start to interact with, they're like, namaste. And I'm like, no, which is hello. I'm like, namaste. Like, kaise, which is how are you? I'm like, baniya. I'm excellent. And they're like, hey, you speak Hindi? And I'm like, mera parivar India mein rehte hai 2-3 saal ke liye to mera kaam India mein mera ka aana jana hamesha. And it starts rolling. It just starts rolling off my tongue, which is my best example of what tongues looks like. Because it is definitely miraculous. And the only way possible is that there was a reason to eat. I had to learn it. And I think a lot of times we roll through these different truths. Big truths that we've been talking about here. And we leave it here and we don't have a clear application. And what I love about chapter 10 of Hebrews, he's already done it a little bit. He's alluded to it, but the author of Hebrews in chapter 10 says, here's the truths. Here's the things that we've been talking about. Now, here's what you do with them. He says, since this and this, now let us do this, and let us do this, and let us do this. And so today what we're going to do is just break down a few verses from Hebrews chapter 10, and we're going to look at what these big things actually mean to us. Also, a few weeks back, my family, we went to a air and space museum, and they had all of these, different things from all the Apollos, and specifically from Apollo 11. And I've never known my teenager to be this adamant, but the minute we walked in, he started spouting off all the facts about how the whole thing was a hoax and how we had never actually been on the moon. And I was really surprised at how, he was like, and he knew a lot of the stuff that I'd never heard. Like we'd see a picture and he's like, see, there's this wrong and this wrong and this wrong and this wrong and this wrong. The whole thing was just fake and this and this and this. And then we kind of got into this back and forth on it. I had a kind of fun fighting him about it the whole time. And I was amazed. I was just pretty much amazed at how much he knew. And then I thought about it later. Well, to you, what does it matter? Does it matter? Today? Whether we put feet on the moon or didn't? To you, I'm talking about today. Like as you leave the church and go out. There's some truths and some things like, okay, that's important. But the things we're talking about right now, is this just something that happened a long time ago? This Jesus, this thing, and it doesn't really matter? Or does it matter this moment and the amount of peace in your heart and the faith that's there and the relationships around this room? Does it impact this moment? And I think Hebrews chapter 10 says that it does. So let's look at this. I'll start in verse 19 and go to verse 25. Therefore, brothers and sisters, since we have confidence to enter the most holy place by the blood of Jesus, by a new and living way opened for us through the curtain, that is, his body. And since we have a great high priest over the house of God, let us draw near to God with a sincere heart and with full assurance that faith brings, having our hearts sprinkled to cleanse us from a guilty conscience and having our bodies washed with pure water. Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. Did you catch it there at the beginning? He pretty much sums up what he's been talking about these last 9 chapters and up to this part of chapter 10. these big things that as believers we have. Not hope for, not wish for in the future, but that we currently possess. We have confidence that by Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, that we now have access. See, did you hear it? The curtain has been torn. Access is available to us. The Creator, living, one true God, and we have access because Jesus spilled his own blood, gave his own life, and defeated sin and death on our behalf. By faith in him, we have access to God. And then this representation that we have, this priest is not a priest that has to offer sacrifices for himself. In fact, he doesn't, and he's the one that offered his own life on our behalf, full of grace and mercy. That's our high priest. We have a better high priest, and we have access. Access. Have you ever had a place that, or something that was really, really special, but it was just outside of your reach, or you couldn't get to it? Maybe somebody else had access and made you jealous. I was just talking to a friend this morning that just made an international trip, and for the first time, she got to sit in first class. Never done first class on an international trip. Asked her before the service this morning if she was enjoying the cocoon of comfort that is first class. It's this whole thing, it's like, man, I told you, I'm just jealous. Never had access to first class. Has there ever been something like that? I remember when Terry and I started dating, we were in high school, and we were in this small town called DeQueen. You may be familiar with it, Southwest Arkansas. And there weren't a lot of restaurants in town. I mean, there was McDonald's, there was the Sonic. But if you were going to sit down and have a meal, the only real place was connected to the one main hotel in town, the Palace, right? Because you got the Queen, so you got the Palace. And so her parents ran the restaurant, and that restaurant was, it may not have been as good as I remember it being, but man, I remember growing up, it felt like, man, we're going to the Palace. It was big time, right? Big time. There's some folks, right? Big time. And so they had all-you-could-eat breakfast buffet. They had all-you-could-eat lunch buffet. They had all-you-could-eat dinner buffet. And believe me, if I go to take care of a buffet, we're gonna take care of it, right? It's gonna be multiple trips. We're gonna put them out of business. And on Friday nights, they had all-you-could-eat seafood buffet. And they had crab legs on the seafood buffet, y'all. I know they weren't fresh. How could they be, right? But people would have a bowl beside their chair just full of all the leftover carnage from the seafood. And I couldn't wait for seafood night. And growing up, that was a big thing, and it was a big privilege. And then Terry and I started dating. Remember, her parents own the restaurant. She's a waitress at the restaurant. Then I start working for her granddad, who's a builder in town, and he's going up there all the time because he eats for free. And I don't remember at what point that they told me it was free to me, that I could partake of the buffet morning, noon, and night, Friday night included, at my leisure. I could eat all I want. I don't remember when it happened. All I can tell you is I gained about 30 pounds because now I had access. And when you had access to the buffet, I was going to take full advantage of it. And one thing that Hebrews is telling us is that, man, because of what Jesus has done, we have access to this God. And it's amazing how often us, we get busy, we get distracted, we prioritize other things, and we sit in our seat while the buffet is available. And we don't go and enter in and take advantage of the access that we have. Then it also says we have representation, this great high priest, a better high priest. And I thought about what it would feel like to walk into a courtroom and to have no doubt. Maybe I'm a part of this thing, somebody's suing me or something's happening, but I got no doubt because the one who's representing me is more than able, more than faithful, is so much better than the opposition that there's not even a contest. I don't know if y'all saw in the news this last couple of weeks, but Gwyneth Paltrow, Pepper Potts, This happens ever so often. I don't know why it's like the headlines, but she had a ski accident back in 2016 in Utah, and the guy she hit was a retired eye doctor, and he decides he's going to sue her for $300,000. And it's just so funny because the pictures are like, I mean, what a joke. She's got her full counsel. They're the best, the best and the brightest going against this guy. He has no hope of winning. He's just trying to make a name for himself. I saw she won, of course, and she walks over to him and just kind of leans over and says, "Wish you well." With full confidence, she enters into that thing with no problems. That's the one that represents us. With full confidence, we enter the throne room of God, not based on our goodness, based on His. Not based on our sacrifice or the blood of a lamb. It's this Jesus that spilt His own blood. So it says, since we have access, since we have this incredible high priest, let us. And here come the action points. If this is going to be true, then these are the things. And it's interesting because it's stated similarly early in Hebrews in chapter 4, right at the end. I'll just read this for you. Chapter 4, verse 14. It says, since we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast to the confession. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. So we can have confidence He understands us. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in times of need. So this let us has already happened once back in chapter 4. And the first let us is, let us draw near to God with a sincere heart, with a true heart, and with full assurance, full confidence that faith brings, having our hearts sprinkled to cleanse us from a guilty conscience and having our bodies washed with pure water. Having confidence, take advantage of it. It's there. For generations the world over, humanity has longed to have an audience with the one true God. To be able to enter into His presence and to be clean enough to see Him face to face and to have a conversation, to know God. And most of the world doesn't know how or what that looks like. Most of the world doesn't know about the sacrifice that was made and the curtain that was torn and the way that we can enter in now because of His righteousness and know the one true God. And I think we just take it, I think we take it for granted that we do have it. The first real kind of business deal I did in this whole India venture, we were taking some of our own money from our savings and buying some products. And I was honestly, as the deal ended and I was running to the train to get back home, I was really scared half to death. I was trembling. I had trembling hands. And I looked across at my business partners, a father, son, family-owned business. And I said, hey, before I head to the train station, can I pray over this? Because I'm really, really nervous. And I'd already talked to him about my faith in Jesus and how my faith in Jesus made it possible for me to have a relationship with God, the one true God. But just bits and pieces. And they were like, hey, you can pray. So I said, okay. And so I just laid my heart out on the table. I'm afraid, God. I'm praying that you would bless this thing, and it's scary, and just talking to my daddy, just talking from my heart. When I finished, these two guys were looking back at me with wide eyes and jaws dropped. And they said, you can just talk to God? And I said, yeah. And I kind of walked back through this. Because of what Jesus has done and because of my faith in Him, He's made me clean. And He invites me, He wants me to come to Him and to talk to Him and to bring things like this, to petition Him. And so then the son takes me to the car and we're running to the train station. And guess what the son, his name's Ronak, guess what he does all the way to the train station? Well, he gives me all of his prayer requests. He has found a man who can talk to God. And so if you can talk to God, well, pray for this for my family, pray for this, pray for this. We also got this, the whole way to the train station, he had his prayer request. About 2 years later, he gets married. I show up at the same train station. His brother picks me up, who had been at college the time before. And guess what the first thing his brother does when I get in the car? He says, oh, I've heard of you. You're the guy that can talk to God. Here's my prayer request. And I realized, man, there's this value when that's unknown. But when we just seem to take it for granted like it's no big deal. Y'all, we have access to the throne of God. And he wants to know us, and he wants us to know him intimately. So, what does the author of Hebrews say? If you got access, since we have access, draw near. Let us draw near. And then the second thing he says is, let us hold on, because we have this better hope. He says, let us hold on unswervingly. Another version says, hold fast, hold tight, get a death grip on this incredible gospel and the hope that we have in Jesus. When everything's crazy and all the chaos surrounds us, we have peace, we have life. Not just knowledge of it, but we have a way of life, which is the gospel. I got nothing to bring to the table. He's got everything. He loves me. He's full of grace and mercy. He's faithful. I've put faith in him, and now because of him, I have significance, I have life, I have purpose. I hold on to that with everything that I've got. And I use the term death grip because, one, it feels like that's what unswervingly hold on. And death grip may not mean a ton to you, like maybe you've heard that phrase before, but for me it has some personal significance from my journey. And I debated a lot about talking about this, but I just feel like, man, I want to make sure we get an idea what death grip means, what a holding fast looks like. Most of you know, a lot of years back on a Good Friday, a good friend of mine drowned. And it was involved in a drowning accident, and I was in the water and was there trying to save him. And there was a moment that night that I just realized that at least one of us was going to die. And if it wasn't going to be both of us, that I was going to have to swim. And I started to try to make my way to the surface of this lake. And I couldn't, because my friend's last motion of life was to reach out and grab my shirt with a death grip. And in order to survive, I had to break that grip. And that picture of his only hope was the chance that maybe I could have enough power to swim him to the surface. That was his only hope. That's the picture, y'all. We reach out and grab a hold of Jesus with a death grip, and it says it here, he's faithful and powerful enough to take us to the surface. But we don't just kind of hold on to that. We hold on to that with everything that we have, all of our strength. Hold fast to it, hold unswervingly to it. It doesn't matter what is happening around us. We hold on. Chapter 6 of Hebrews, it talked about this holding on and this steadfast grip. It said that this gospel, this hope is an anchor for our souls. An anchor, that's the picture. It's the anchor that holds in the chaos, the angry sea, this hope, it's our anchor. In fact, fellas, there's an anchor hanging in the boys' bathroom. If you hadn't seen it, every Sunday you can use right there. You can look at it. I don't know if it's in the girls' bathroom or not, but this reminder that this hope, it's an anchor, and we hold fast to it. So, these two things, let us draw near to God. Let us hold on to this better hope. And those are the two things that were repeated back in chapter 4. But then in chapter 10, there's a third. And those first two, they may not blindside you that much. All right, yeah, I kind of expect that. And these are the things that we should do. But the third one may. And the third one is one that I don't even know when we talk about kind of preparing our hearts for Easter and what these truths mean for us. We make it really personal. And this third one kind of rocks that a bit. The third one is, let us consider one another. Since we have access, since we have this incredible high priest, let us consider the other person. And as I've thought about community at the Grove and just in the body of Christ and really even in my own life and my own family, and I think about what is the obstacle, what is the thing? Let us consider the other is really at the heart of it. Because by nature, we make this thing so personal that we consider me. And it's a huge thing for us to step out and to consider the other. To show up here on a Sunday and not just be thinking, what do I take? But what do I give? Not just be thinking about, is this good for me, but is this a place that I can invite my friend who's in desperate need? We're real quick to consider me and my good and my comfort. But this says that the knee-jerk reaction of the one who would understand these truths is that they would consider one another. And then look what it says they would consider one another how we may spur one another on. Spur, another word for there is irritate. That's not a word of comfort. It's not that it's easy. It's actually that it's pretty difficult to encourage, to love, to challenge one another, to be in these relationships where we consider the gospel implications for the other, and we try to draw one another into these truths. It's not necessarily comfortable. It's kind of uncomfortable. In fact, it even goes on to say, man, let us not be like those that would neglect the gathering of ourselves together as some do. Which evidently that would mean that there's this natural tendency to kind of give up on that and to start to neglect the gathering of ourselves together. He's like, no, because these things are true, all the more. No, you have to consider one another, and you have to join together and meet together and know one another and spur one another on towards love and good works. I'm considering the next person. Man, we talk about a gospel truth application. Maybe that's one that maybe we've missed. A lot of the internal conversations I have with myself in my home, with my friends, it feels like a lot of times we consider ourselves and don't consider one another. And, being on a plane here recently, I'm always, when they do the safety demonstration, and they're talking about the air mask, I know you've heard the illustration about, man, we really do have to put our mask on first before we help the person next to us. And every time I've thought about that, I'd be quick to help my kids before I put my mask on. But, you put my mask on, I got to be able to have some oxygen if I'm going to help somebody else. But the truth is, never gone that next layer that the man for a lot of us, a lot of times in my life, I'll put that mask on and I'll breathe deep of that oxygen. How much of that oxygen can I get? While maybe around me there's a lot of people who are in desperate need of oxygen, but I'm just here just taking it in just for me and not considering the people around me. And I'm really thankful that a few years back, about 2000, Terry and I moved to Conway, Arkansas. And at that point, we were really struggling with infertility. We'd wanted to have a baby, and it just wasn't happening. And I was making a job change, and career-wise, we weren't in agreement about where we were headed and what I was going to do and what she was going to do, and that had caused a lot of conflict. Our marriage was kind of on the rocks. In every way, we were a little bit disillusioned with church and church people, and just all together, we were pretty burnt and broken when we showed up to Conway. And there was a church, and we started to attend there that we kind of knew somebody in, and we sat in the back, and we were just gonna, just do the thing that you were supposed to do. And then there was this couple, Luke and Kim Porter, and they kind of knew about us. Not really. We had some mutual friends from the past. Actually, they didn't live too far away from the house that we were living in. And I'm gonna tell you what, Luke and Kim Porter, they had 2 kids. Both of them had businesses that they were responsible for. They had a lot of life going on. But Luke and Kim Porter decided that they were gonna consider Mark and Terry Powell Freeman. And they were relentless. I mean, really, we had never been a part, because the church structures we had been a part of in the past didn't have like small groups and homes. And they wanted us to come over to their house and have a Bible study and talk about Jesus with these other people. And we didn't want anything to do with that. We didn't want your people, but they were relentless. They tricked us, actually, if I remember right. It was like some kind of Super Bowl party or something, and they kind of tricked us into meeting all the people. But they were relentless. I remember the men's retreat. I did not want to go on the men's retreat. I didn't want anything to do with the men's retreat. I was doing the church thing that you were supposed to do, but nothing past that. And Luke basically picked me up and put me in a suitcase and took me to that men's retreat. They made the effort to care about us. And that made all the difference. I don't know where we'd be right now if it hadn't been for Luke and Kim Porter. And there's some Luke and Kim Porters around your circle right now. And I'm begging you, based on the truth of the gospel in your life, consider one another. Let me pray for us. Father,
Thanks again for joining us on our sermon podcast, and you can learn more about us at thegrovechurch.org. And if you go to thegrovechurch.org/connect, there's a form you could fill out. Just let us know that you've been listening. And if you want to dig deeper on some of these topics that we cover in our sermon podcast, or just in other issues of dealing with culture or theology, those kinds of things, you can check out our Cultivate podcast. It's on the same feed, however you found this particular podcast. So again, this is Charlie, the lead pastor at The Grove, and thank you so much for joining us.